What's up, everybody? Andrew Mahone here with Darium's Competitive Pokemon, showing off another great new deck from the European International Championships. This is Stefan's 12th place Zoroark GX Decidueye GX list. So this is a very unique deck. I love the way that he's built this thing. There are a lot of very different new inclusions in this Decidueye deck. I mean, I don't necessarily agree with all of them, but Stefan has got the finish to back it up. Top 16 at the European International Championships is nothing to scoff at. So definitely give this thing a try, see what makes it work, and how Stefan was able to do so well with it. I checked out his post online, and he said that healing is for the weak. He does not think that he needs any Max Potion in this deck. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I think Max Potion is so good in a lot of decks right now, especially Decidueye. I did see that he did take some losses to some Buzzwole decks there during Swiss rounds. Maybe that would have gone a little better if he'd been playing some Max Potions. But that being said, he was still able to persevere, do really well in the tournament, and this deck is very consistent. He was saying that he's not in favor of playing Max Potions or healing in this deck. He just wants to do as much damage as possible. So mad respect for that. You know, can't knock it until you try it. So let's take a look at Stefan's 12th place Decidueye GX Zoroark GX deck. Zoroark and Decidueye are alive and well in the current standard format. Let's see what makes this deck work so well and how Stefan was able to do well with it. So 4 copies of Decidueye GX. He's got 2 copies of Dartrix and 4 copies of Rowlet. This is a little bit of a cut. I mean, a lot of decks were playing the 3 copies of Dartrix, but Stefan decided that he did not need 3 copies of Dartrix in his list. He is also playing 3 Zorua and 2 Zoroark GX. I do really like that count as well. I think the 3-2 is just much better than a 2-2 or a 2-1, really giving you the most consistent options for setting up your Zoroark throughout the game. He is also playing 1 copy of this Mewtwo from Evolutions and 1 copy of Tapu Koko. Tapu Koko, very good for Flying Flip. I do agree that I think that, you know, Flying Flip is only needed as a 1-of in this deck. I really don't think you need 2. And then Mewtwo, very good against the Buzzwole. If Buzzwole happens to get a lot of energy onto it, you could do a lot of damage with the Mewtwo. I think that maybe the Latios, you know, could be better, but Mewtwo can also get in there versus Gardevoir GX, which is really cool. If they happen to load up a huge Gardevoir GX to knock out something like a Decidueye, you could definitely punish it with Mewtwo, so it does have that going for it as well. So I do like Mewtwo in here. Mewtwo was being played in older versions of Decidueye back during North American Nationals, and I think that its return here is very welcome. It's just a very consistent, easy to use, easy to set up, low maintenance attacker for a double colorless energy. What's not to like about that? Zoroark GX in here, very good as an attacker. I mean, trade as well. I think Zoroark GX just does a lot of things for this deck. Trade really helps to just smooth out the draw in this deck. A lot of the problems that this deck had stemmed from a lack of draw. I mean, things really clunked up very easily. You would run out of supporters. This deck wants to just last well into the end game. You are going to, a lot of times you're going to have long games, you know, as you're kind of sniping out your opponent, and you might run out of supporters and things like that. You can always Hollow Hunt them back, but you don't always have time for Hollow Hunt. So trade really helps you to hit the cards that you need to hit, helps you draw late into the game even after you've expired all of your supporters. Trade also allows you to hit your double colorless energy more consistently, hit your grass energy more consistently, which is just very useful for this deck. I can tell you the biggest headache about playing a Decidueye deck is whiffing your double colorless energy when you need it, and that happens way too often, way more than you might like. Zoroark GX helps alleviate that pressure a little bit with trade, just allowing you to draw deeper into your deck even after you've played a supporter for your turn, so that is very cool. He also plays a couple copies of Mallow in here, so that really helps you to hit your double colorless energy, because Mallow in combination with trade, you can put the 2 cards, exactly the 2 cards that you want, on top of your deck and make sure that you draw into them appropriately. So Zoroark GX really helps this deck out a lot, helps smooth out your energy attachments, helps smooth smooth out your draw. I really do like Zoroark GX in here in combination with that Mallow. Really helps you get the cards you need into play. Then, of course, we do play 2 copies of Tapu Lele GX. I think 2 copies is fair. You don't necessarily need 3 copies, especially with Zoroark GX really helping patch up that draw later in the game. You really only need Tapu Lele GX to help get you started and to get your feet off the ground. You know, once you get a turn 1 Bridget, then you can just move on to drawing with trade and probably do just fine from there. Obviously, Energy Drive is a very good attack in this deck too, just dealing a great vanilla amount of damage that can be buffed by Decidueye GX's Feather Arrow. So we do love Tapu Lele GX in here. I think 2 copies works out just fine. And then, of course, we have our beloved Espeon EX, who is here to miraculous shine things and devolve all of them. So once you deal, enough damage to your opponent's evolution Pokemon, you could take multiple prizes in the same turn with that 1 energy miraculous shine. Just an awesome option to have. Can be totally devastating to the opponent's field. You can see, obviously, Tord did play the 1 copy of Mr. Mime, so he is going to be nerfing that Tapu Koko. But, with this deck, against a deck like Tord's, if you were playing Max Potion, you would have more time to heal and wall with your Decidueyes, while Tord is stuck at a place where he cannot one-shot your Decidueyes. So I do think healing is a really good option to consider for this deck, even though Stefan was not playing any himself. I think it would really help your Golisopod matchup a whole lot, your Golisopod Zoroark matchup, because they don't have any way to knock out big Pokemon like Zoroark GX and Decidueye GX in one hit, allowing you to go later into the game, Feather Arrow all of your opponent's stuff, and then go ahead, devolve it all, and just go from there. So awesome synergy between these cards that we've seen before, but Zoroark GX just gives us a nice little non-fire weak attacker. Obviously, we used to play Ninetales GX, but Zoroark is just more consistent. Zoroark's trade makes the deck more consistent. Zoroark's Righteous Beating is just more consistent damage output. You don't need to find a choice band to do a lot of damage. You could do 120 damage just by filling the field with Pokemon, so I do love that about Zoroark GX. Just having that alternative type coverage is really, really good. 4 copies of Decidueye is just the bread and butter of this deck. You want to be able to get as many Decidueye as you can into play so that you can use Feather Arrow to snipe anywhere on your opponent's side of the field and clean up the damage that you do with Zoroark GX. If you Riotous Beating for 120 damage, then maybe you supplement with 2 Feather Arrows, and maybe you're doing like 160, right? 2 Feather Arrows and a Riotous Beating. Then the next turn, maybe you Feather Arrow a couple more times, knock out whatever is in the opponent's active position, and then attack something new once they promote it. So Decidueye GX and Zoroark GX do have a lot of coverage, a lot of synergy together, because Decidueye GX help pick up the scraps that Zoroark GX leaves behind. So you don't always have to be 2-hit KOing things with Zoroark GX. You can just finish things off with Decidueye so that you can attack something new with your Zoroark. Now, 2 copies of Dartrix does make me nervous, especially since Stefan is only playing 3 copies of Rare Candy. That makes me really nervous about this deck. I was like jaw dropped when I saw that. I could not believe that he sacrificed consistency with his Decidueye line, only playing 2 copies of Dartrix and 3 copies of Rare Candy. I thought for sure if he was only playing 2 copies of Dartrix that he would play the full 4 copies of Rare Candy, or that, maybe if he's going to play 3 copies of Rare Candy that he would play 3 copies of Dartrix. But I guess Stefan decided that he was just going to not prize any of those things the whole tournament and ended up doing just fine with it. So even though that makes me nervous, Stefan was able to do well with these counts. I guess you can say that Mallow allows you to stack your deck. With Zoroark GX, you can stack your deck with Mallow, trade, draw into the perfect Rare Candy Decidueye combo, so it's not as necessary to have as many copies of Dartrix or as many copies of Rare Candy, because you're going to be using them more efficiently with the trade Mallow combo than you might have been doing previously, just kind of ending and hoping you drew into the cards you needed. So I can defend him on that front. The Mallow and the Evo Sodas that he plays as well really do help smooth this thing out, but it is going to take some testing on my part to see if I do like the 2 Dartrix and the 3 Rare Candy, if that really is responsible, or if I want to beef up one of those counts somewhere for something else. But that being said, it is, it did work for Stefan, so try it out yourself. Don't knock it till you try it. I do think that this is a very good, kind of base setup that he's got here as far as these Pokemon go. So I do like the Pokemon that he has included in the list. He also played 4 copies of Professor Sycamore and 4 copies of N. Obviously, just your 2 strongest draw cards in the format. I do love the 2 copies of Mallow in here. Mallow is making a huge statement in standard format right now alongside Zoroark GX. Just being able to draw any 2 cards you would like out of your deck with trade is just extremely good. So Mallow, helping you find those double colorless energies, helping you find the Rare Candy Decidueye combo, all just excellent synergy. Really love that. 2 copies of Guzma in here is really good too, just being able to target down with precision exactly what you want to take out on your opponent's side of the field. Also, just allowing you to get the most mileage possible out of your Zoroark GX. I mean, 120 damage is a good amount of damage for Zoroark GX to do. You can help take out threats early with Guzma. I know some of my lists that I was playing with Ninetales GX, Alolan Ninetales GX, didn't have many Guzma at all in them. Maybe 1 I cut down to, maybe even 0 at one point. I had tried 0 copies of Guzma. I think, Ninetales, the idea was that you're going to be sniping with Ice Blade and taking out threats that way. But here, there is no Ninetales. So I really do like the 2 copies of Guzma, not only as a switch card, but just to aggressively take out whatever you would like on your opponent's side of the field. Then we do have our 2 copies of Bridget as well. Bridget is just essential to setting up this deck, and I think we could even take a play out of Tord's book. You could even play a 3rd copy of Bridget in here, because Bridget is just that essential to getting this deck to set up appropriately. You really want to go turn 1, grab at least a Zorua and a couple of Rowlet, and then just evolve into Zoroark and just start using trade from there to draw all the cards that you need. So a 3rd copy of Bridget could be useful in here, just to keep your bench full at all times for Zoroark. Also, just as trade fodder, just something to be able to ditch, once you get set up on that first turn with trade to throw away. I'm just saying I could see it, but 2 is a perfectly reasonable count and does work very well in this deck. I've been playing Decidueye decks with 2 copies of Bridget for a while here, and I can really stand by that. But I think the real standout inclusion is those 2 copies of Mallow there. Very, very cool decision on Stefan's part. We do also have 4 copies of Ultra Ball, 3 copies of Rare Candy, as I had mentioned before, and then 3 copies of Choice Band, so a little bit more on the damage output front. Zoroark GX being able to bust out 150 damage is much better than just 120, so I do think that this is a great inclusion as well. The 3rd copy of the Choice Band means you're going to be getting the most mileage out of Zoroark as possible. 3 copies of Field Blower, also a step up from the amount that I was playing previously. I was playing 2 with just the thought that maybe you could just hollow hunt them back. 3 means that you're going to be removing tools from Garbodor all the time. You're going to be removing your opponent's Choice Band all the time. You're going to be removing their Parallel City all the time. So I really do like 3 copies of Field Blower in here. I think it's very good. You can definitely hollow hunt them back in a pinch and reuse them. It's going to increase your Garbodor matchup, the winnability of your Garbodor matchup a whole heck of a lot playing 3 copies of Field Blower. 2 Rescue Stretcher, absolutely essential. I mean, you're going to be discarding Pokemon with Sycamore and things like that. You need some hard draw in order to get this deck going, so Sycamore is required, and you want to be able to pick up your Pokemon and lay them right back down with Rescue Stretcher. You want to be able to pick up your Zoroark GX out of the discard pile. Maybe your one-ofs you want to be able to reuse, like Mewtwo and Tapu Koko, in the matchups that they are useful in. You also want to be able to grab your Decidueye GXs if you happen to have to throw them away with Rescue Stretcher, and just make sure that you can recycle them back into the deck for later usage. 2 copies of Floatstone is fine in here. I did used to love 3 copies of Floatstone just to increase the mobility in this deck, but I think 3 copies of Floatstone is probably just a little bit better with Max Potion, since you're going to be retreating a lot, Max Potioning, things like that. 2 copies is fine since he does play 2 copies of Guzma as well. He's going to have those switching options that he needs thanks to 2 copies of Guzma. So 2 copies of Floatstone does work just well to get that mobility that you need. And then the 2 copies of Evo Soto, I do love this in here because you could just easily Evo Soto right up into a Zoroark GX after a turn 1 Bridget, and then just start using trade without compromising any of your resources with Ultra Ball. Evo Soto also increases the consistency with which that you'll get a turn 2 Dartrix, so I do like that as well. I think Evo Soto is a nice little inclusion to speed up, the evolution process in this deck, and just to increase the odds that you hit your evolution cards like Ultra Ball, Evo Soto, to get those evolutions up early. Now, Evo Soto does make me a little bit nervous. I think it might be better of an inclusion if we had a 3rd copy of Dartrix. However, we are going to try this list out since this is the proven list from the European International Championships with that 12th place finish, and I am going to give these 2 copies of Evo Soto with the 3 copies of Rare Candy a valid effort before I go altering the list any. And then, as is standard in a lot of Decidueye decks, just 3 copies of Grass, 4 copies of Double Colorless Energy does just fine. Grass, you're going to be using that to Hollow Hunt. You're going to be using it also for Espeon EX in a pinch, but most of the time you're going to be searching for these Double Colorless Energy just to use for your Zoroark GX, your Tapu Koko, and your Mewtwo from Evolutions. Tapu Lele, all your attacks are powered by these Double Colorless Energy. You don't necessarily need special charge in here. You can just Hollow Hunt your energy back if you should need to. So that's it for Stefan's very unique, very original Decidueye GX Zoroark GX list. I know Decidueye has seen a lot of different flavors and iterations in the past couple months here. I think it is a very promising archetype, and going forward, I think that Decidueye does have a lot of promise. Now, I'm not completely sold on the no healing version of Decidueye. I think Christopher Szymanski was able to show just how good healing does in this format, especially against decks playing Buzzwole, Po-Town, Tapu Koko, all those snipe decks. Just being able to glance those hits off. Also being able to glance off hits from Zoroark GX, Golisopod, just very good in this format. So I think that I might try some healing in here myself. However, this is the 12th place list from the European International Championships. Hope you guys enjoyed my explanation. Make sure to like the video. Let me know what you think about this deck in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel. Peace.